All right, if you have kids or grandkids in public schools, you need to hear this next story. A brand new investigation this week is unmasking the actual bankrollers of the woke agenda, breaking down how some of the largest philanthropic organizations in the world are funneling literally hundreds of millions of dollars into public schools. And trust me, the test scores aren't reflecting the influx of cash. So how is this money being used? Joining me now is the political director for Parents Defending Education, Alex Nestor. They've been on the front lines of this fight for our nation's students for some time. Alex, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
You bet. Tell me, where is this money being coming from?
Yeah. So from 2017 to 2021, 5 organizations spent more than $200 million on public schools. The vast majority of this funding, of course, went toward equity initiatives and transformative systemic change in schools. And it's funding coming from 5 foundations: the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, the Chan Zuckerberg Initiative, the Kellogg Foundation, the Wallace Fund, and the Windward Fund. And most people rightly believe that by paying their taxpayer dollars, that, that's what's funding their local public schools. And then therefore they get some say as to what's going on there. But clearly, as you mentioned, this is really a massive effort from these organizations to quietly control what's going on in our public schools.
Well, so let me put it to you a different way, though. Let's say I pay taxes, my kids are going to school, and I hear that Bill Gates, his foundation's given a couple $1 million. I think, wow, that's a good thing, because maybe it's subsidizing a bunch of the things. Why would I be wrong in thinking that? Because I'd think, hey, that eases the tax burden, right?
Well, unless, you want social emotional learning in public schools, then I would say that's not the case. Here, we're seeing that a lot of this funding, most of it went toward influencing teacher and administrator training, transforming student behavioral practices and procedures, and implementing social emotional learning in schools. We saw in Battle Creek Public Schools in Michigan, which was the top recipient of funding at $31 million, which they received from the Kellogg Foundation. They used that funding to implement a culturally relevant teaching practices, which, they claimed that students are traumatized by the Eurocentric perspective that they're taught in American schools. And, here, what's concerning to me and what I think parents should be concerned about is, as adults, I think these kids are, going to be traumatized when they realize that they don't have the skills that they need to succeed in life, and that their schools spent 2 decades peddling and selling them on this divisive, race ideology instead.
So if I had to bottom line this, what you're saying to me is these big organizations like the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation and the Zuckerberg Foundation are spending millions of dollars to kind of go into public schools and indoctrinate them in this woke agenda. Is that a fair assessment of what's happening?
Absolutely. And that's through behavioral practices. That's through what they're teaching the teachers and administrators that care for students day in and day out. And let's not forget that student academic achievement is abysmal right now, because teachers unions locked kids out of schools for a year. In Battle Creek Public Schools, as I just mentioned, they received millions in funding. Their students are nowhere near achieving just basic, proficiency marks in reading and math. Just 12% of elementary students there are performing at proficiency in math, and 15% are performing at proficiency in reading. And, the Kellogg Foundation and school officials have decided here that it's more important to focus on equity and this divisive race ideology than teach kids just basic skills.
Okay, so you guys are kind of, a whistleblower, in effect, of kind of calling this all out, putting it out there. If I'm a parent, and we put a Battle Creek up there in Michigan, if I'm a parent in a school district, how do I know if my children's school is receiving these funds? And if it is, how do I know what it's being used for?
Well, Sean, we get most of this information through publicly available records, either 990 tax forms or, public record requests to the school districts. Parents have a right to know what money is coming into their schools and what's coming out of it as a result. So parents can file their own public records requests to find out this information, and they have a right to, demand that information from their school officials and from their school boards.
But all right, so but again, I mean, look, I got to be honest with you. Most parents are working a job sometimes too. They're coming home, helping their kid with homework, making dinner, getting ready the next day. I mean, does your website have this information? Because I mean, I get your point. You can go FOIA this stuff, but that takes a lot of time. So what's the easiest way to find out where this money is going to? And then the question is, so that's the first question. Can I find out on your website where it's going to?
Yeah, you can find us at defendinged.org, and our Cracked Foundations project is right there on the front page. We have right there listed the top 10 districts in the country, that received this funding, and parents can go right there, and all of the PDFs of the documents and grant funding is right there.
Okay, so Alex, let's say I go there, I see my child's school. What do I do? What do I do? And I go, wow, look at all this money that's going into my kid's school. What's the next step? What should I do to find out what classes or indoctrination is being used to either go after the teachers or the administrators or even my kids?
Well, on our website, you can see both the grant funding and the programs that it's being used for. So that's step one. Step two is you go to your school district and you demand answers. If you, find something on our website or elsewhere that you don't like to see in your public school, you have a right to raise hell about it.
Okay. Well, I hope a lot of people do, because I'll be honest, it's so many times, unless we do a segment on it or you guys bring this to our attention, we don't see it. So thank you for doing that, because I think most parents probably don't know that this is happening in their kids' school. So Alex Nestor, I appreciate you bringing this to our attention. Thank you for that. And if you get any additional information, if this continues to grow, please let us know.
Certainly. Thanks for having me.